Today with us in the studios is Ms.Chandani Kirinda, a senior journalist, special correspondent of the Financial Times and former assistant editor, Sunday Times, and has also been the lobby correspondent for Sunday Times. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And it's very good to have you here with us this morning. So Women's Day is just around the corner. So today, as a senior journalist, we would like to talk to you about women in media. So first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about yourself, Ms. Chandani. How did you get into media and what inspired you to do so?
Well, I started off just after school when I was about 19 years old. So I joined the Sun group of newspapers, which is no longer there. It's defunct now, as a trainee reporter. So I've always been a person, I used to read a lot of newspapers, and I'm very curious. So I think that's like a very basic requirement to be a journalist. So that kind of led me into the field of journalism, and I've never really looked back and never looked at another career option. I was really hooked, and well, I've kept going now for it's close to 30 years now since then.
So you were attached to Sunday Times for almost...
Sunday Times, I was there for almost 20 years.
20 years, and now you're attached to the Financial Times as a special correspondent. So today's topic would be women in media. Tell us about the difficulties they face, the advantages, the disadvantages of being in media.
Well, the media is like most of the other fields in this country, of course, dominated by men. But there are women who have really made a mark in it. So, like women in most other spheres in this country, we do have our own set of challenges. But also, it's a very rewarding career. So, for me personally, I think I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of course, every editor has been male that I worked with. But they've been very supportive and also encourage us, although the women journalists were encouraged to do as much as what men do. So we've had those opportunities, to go out into the field and report on all kinds of situations. And we haven't been restricted to doing soft subjects as such just because we are women. So I think a lot would depend on the editor and how much confidence they place in you and send you out there. And as women, of course, it is our responsibility also to deliver, to take up these challenges and go forth. And I think a lot of women have actually done it in this field, at least, in the print media, because I'm a newspaper journalist. So there are challenges, and I think one thing that a lot of women in the media would tell you, because we don't work a 9-to-5 job, we need to be, starting early, working very late, which also means balancing family and work and all these things. So, while you need, of course, your editors and people to support you, a lot of the family support is, I think, really crucial in this job.
So you've been working for a very long time. So times have changed from then to now. So take us through your journey in media and the challenges you faced.
Yes, so when I started out, of course, because at that point, I suppose things are a little more, things are more sophisticated and easier to get about. For us, even things like, getting transport to go for assignments and that kind of thing was not easy. We had to use public transport. We did have office transport, but it was very limited. And, telephone facilities and stuff like that. So, see, if I was working late, I had to find a land telephone to inform my parents I'm working late. So that kind of thing was there. So it was a bit, compared to what younger journalists have now, there were all kinds of things. So, I suppose technology has really made things so much easier for us, right? Because I suppose the need to go out all the time onto the field and also to some extent is a little minimized, but I still think the journalists really have to be on the field and work there. So, it was more challenging and a more daunting task when we started out. But now because, times have changed and we've also kind of evolved with it, things are much easier. But then I think the basic stuff about journalism that women and everyone in general has to face are still there. But I think where women are concerned, I think more and more women have entered the field. and they kind of really contributed to making it, attractive, proposition for women, more women to come forward and join it.
We do see a lot of women involved in media currently, and we're talking about print media right now. So you did say that you have to visit different places, go out station, and there are certain challenges women should face in terms of being actively involved in the article they write, or being an investigative journalist. I think it requires a lot of involvement with strangers. So tell us the challenges in general that the women face now, even though technology is available.
Yeah, I think generally, yes, all the technologies there, women are women. And, in our society, I think women are, we all face certain challenges. And I think generally, issues like safety, when they go out of their offices, and especially when they have to work late at night, how are they going to get about? And, that kind of safety and security concerns are there for women, the harassment issues. These are really things that are, even if you go to a very public rally, say you're covering a major event, as women, we have to be more mindful than a man. So I suppose it's again down to, what basics of what a lot of women would tell you in Sri Lanka, how you dress or how you conduct yourself. All these things would also come into play again.
What's your opinion on it? Why does it happen in Sri Lanka? You mentioned the term in Sri Lanka.
Well, I'm talking about Sri Lanka because I live here, but maybe it does happen in other societies as well. Well, it's really difficult to, we have boast of a very high literacy rate. We have like 52% of the population is women, and women are very dominant in our society, or even in a family structure, right? We have had like a matriarchal society. But still there seems to be a lot of progress that has to be made, in the sense, accepting women being out there and wanting to do their own thing. There still seems to be, maybe it's not like, maybe people don't just come out and tell you, you shouldn't be doing it. But there seems to be like, some kind of there's a hidden, but I think there is some resistance to, women really being out there and, being in, top positions and taking these challenges.
I think it's all to do with equality as well. And we speak about that, I guess, every single year, but we need to highlight this all throughout the year. And I guess Women's Day is just around the corner as well. So that's why we're talking about women in media today. So good morning, Sri Lanka. We've been talking about women in media with Mrs. Chandani Kirinda, a senior journalist who's here with us in the studios. And you've also been the lobby correspondent for Sunday Times. So I'm sure you will have a say or two on women in parliament.
Yes, actually, in fact, I did write something on that same subject, and it's appeared in today's paper. And then, having covered parliament for so many years, and, seen that, usually very few women actually get elected to parliament. But also, even among those women, it's, because they are heavily outnumbered for one thing, it's very, they themselves now admit that it's very difficult for them to be heard. Because now we have, in the last parliament, we had 13 women in a 225 legislature, so which is like they're heavily outnumbered. And it's not because they are incompetent or they are not qualified or, they don't know subject matter. It's just that they are heavily outnumbered. So these women, what's happened to the women now is they kind of chose to work across, put aside all party differences and work together in a group, so they can actually raise issues that are important to women, children, and that kind of issues which are usually totally sidelined and don't get enough prominence. So what a lot of the women MPs also told us, about 2 weeks, we had a conference where they told us the real problem is they also feel discriminated within the system. And you would think that people who are MPs, who are elected to parliament, who are, very public figures, and who to us come out as looking very strong people. They're outspoken, they are smart, and they seem to be on par with any of the male politicians, but they themselves feel discriminated and they don't get their due. So I suppose for them the main problem is that they're just outnumbered there, and so what they were actually considering having a campaign to get more women elected to the next parliament, which I think also would serve women in general, because if there are more women in a place like parliament, they can speak more on women's issues, and at least make people more aware that women in this country do face some issues. They need to be, I mean, we can just keep denying them and live in denial, saying no, women don't get harassed on buses, or they can't walk on the road without being catcalled, or they get judged for what they wear. So I mean, these are issues. I mean, sometimes it's just it's best is, I think, that they are spoken of, so that people are aware that this is wrong.
Exactly. With technology, and there are various websites, I think, spreading awareness that, on education and educating the women about their rights and what they could do if something like this happens, which is great. But speaking of women getting involved in a job of this nature, like media, it needs a lot of support from home. And you mentioned that your family supported you to be, to pursue in your dreams, as you really wanted to be someone in media, a journalist. So tell us a bit about the support from parents, which is important, and it has to be there for women who are aspiring to be media personalities as well. So can you speak a little bit about that as well?
Yes, I mean, when I started out, I mean, I'm not sure. I think it's just that I was raised in a family. There were four of us. There were four girls in my family and just one brother. So I don't know. I was not raised in a family where we ever felt we were like girl. There was a difference between girls and boys. So I suppose that. So when I decided to become a journalist, it was like no big, like no one saying don't do it, or that kind of thing. So I just went out there and just started working, and early on took on all these doing some challenging stories, staying late in office, or going out station on work, because my parents are supportive, and they never really said don't do it, you're a girl, you shouldn't do it, which I think is really important, even for any girl who wants to be in the media. It's very important to have the support of your parents and your family in general, because really without them it's really very, very difficult, because you have to feel that they support you and they are on your side, because it's very likely that other people might
they're very judgmental as well.
They might, yeah.
So speaking of a profession in general now, it doesn't apply only to media. I think the support from parents is vital for any profession a woman does. So sometimes it specifically applies to women in media, because we have to work late nights and then early mornings, and suddenly we need to cover stories outstation. So that's when the problem arises. So although it's about going and doing coverages and being involved with a lot of people who are from the other gender, I guess it's there in every profession, and we need to kind of highlight that fact as well. So trust factor is very important, and it depends on every individual, right, Mrs. Chandani? Because, if the person is not right, no matter what profession you do, you're still going to be that person.
That's true. I agree with that, because really it's all a matter of trust, I mean, okay, you might start off, before you're married, and then it's your parents, but then later on you might, most women would get married, have kids, and also the person, your spouse, or, initially your boyfriend or spouse, would have to, also understand the nature of your job and accept it. I mean, the same way if your husband is doing a job that takes him away from home, I mean, it's very, most women the wives would support them, and the same kind of support is needed for women as well. So, trust is a really important, important factor in any, I suppose, with whatever profession you are in, but more so in this simply because of, the nature of our work, which takes us out, and like you said, you have to work with a lot of men and interact with them, and it's just that you do get put into this kind of thing. And then I suppose later on, when you have children, I mean, I suppose as children grow older also, they also, I suppose, should be to learn to respect what you're doing, that the mother is doing this work, that it's important, and the respect is also part of this whole thing. So I suppose that women, because we have to juggle work, home, and all this stuff, a lot of it rests also on the shoulders of women, no, especially when they raise
Exactly.
sons.
Exactly, and and I think coming from you, a person who's already balancing family life and also being involved in media, it's important to talk a little bit about the balance, how you manage to do all that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think extended family support is like vital. So I've actually, I mean, like I was telling you earlier before the program started, it's not one of those, one size fits all kind of thing about juggling home and work, right? So I think a lot of us in our societies depend on our extended families, mainly our parents, say my in-laws and all, to help. So I was really fortunate because they did help out. Because once you have children, it's some if your children are not properly taken care of and you don't think they are being looked after, you can't really do your work properly because you'll be so distracted. So I had a lot of support in that way. But because journalism is also a good thing about this job is it gives you a lot of time, without being in office the whole day. You also get to kind of find time to maybe take your child for a class in between your work or drop them off somewhere. So it kind of really, unlike other jobs where 9 to 5 means where you stay in the office the whole day, it gives you a lot of, it's flexible, which is really, a great thing. We really get to do a lot of work, our own work, our kids' work and all stuff in between.
Now, we've been talking about the issues, the challenges women face in this profession, and how extended family support and your own family support is very important to pursue in this profession. But you're a senior journalist and you've been in this industry for a very long time. And I'm sure you could give some advice to the younger generation who wants to be a journalist. What should they do to become a journalist? This is in general, not only for the women.
So journalism, I think even in the journalism as a whole, it's kind of grown into I suppose it's become more formal. I mean, during most of the people of my generation, when we started out, we just joined this soon after school. So we kind of learned a lot of it on the job. And then we developed our skills, learned from our seniors, and a lot of it was based on experience. Now I think the younger generation is also very interested in being more qualified, like academically qualified. So I mean, they might not all want to start off after school. They take time off to do their degrees, higher degrees and stuff. So there is a more formalized thing, and I think it's good for journalism, of course, in particular, and for everyone else to be more academically sound. It does give them this thing. But for journalism, if you are really passionate about, I mean, you need to be really passionate about it, because although it looks really glamorous, there is a lot of hard work involved.
It's very time consuming, and also you need to work late nights and a lot of stress too at the same time.
Yeah. And also making sure the stories are correct and verifying them, because it's a huge responsibility, because what you write or get out there is consumed by a lot of people. So there's a lot of responsibility involved in doing it. So all that is there. So I suppose if you want to be a journalist, like I said, you need to be really curious. That's very important.
That's the main thing.
Main thing is curious, and of course, we're really interested in people. Willing to listen to anyone, not just people on top who'll scream from from a stage or something, but to even people who are like me, who might be just not some big shot, but I mean, everyone's voice should be heard in equal measure. And so I think, that's really important, to listen to people.
Exactly. So that's for all those aspiring journalists out there, what they should concentrate on. And now that we have technology and, it's easy access to many news now from around the world, just a click away. But credibility plays a massive role here. And what would you like to say to all these younger generation out there who count on news spread on social media? And they certainly have to check on credibility, don't they?
Yes, that's. I mean, these are the kind of new challenges that everyone faces, right? And particularly journalists, because now, like you said, it's so easy to access news, but then credibility and stuff is like, yeah, it's so difficult to verify what is, real and what is fake and stuff. So, I mean, I think just we had to be really discerning the way we consume news. We had to be discerning the same way we are about other stuff, like what you eat or the kind of people you associate with. You're more discerning, right? I think in news also we need to be like that, without just, taking everything that's, you see and just consuming and actually trying to believe that this is all true. And I think you also need to try to find credible sources. If you want to verify something, and now say the coronavirus is going around and there's so much of stuff being propagated all over, so you kind of have to see if the sources are credible and go to them. And of course, for people, if you're like a professional journalist, we know when we write something, because our name goes with it, we need to verify facts and get it correct. So, I mean, I think if of course newspapers, print media is of course a bit traditional, but I think print media generally, to a large extent, does a lot of fact checking and puts stuff there. I suppose a lot of the issues now come with social media. So, it's true, social media, and there's a huge amount of information there, but eventually it's up to us to decide what we are going to consume and, whether we believe it or not, it's eventually in our hands.
Exactly. So it was really nice talking to you, Mrs. Chandani Kirinda, and thank you so much for your encouraging words for women. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we've been in conversation with Mrs. Chandani Kirinda, senior journalist, special correspondent of the Financial Times, former assistant editor, Sunday Times, and the lobby correspondent as well. And we've been talking about women in media on Good Morning Sri Lanka.